Good morning. This is Casey Baldy. I am the deafblind specialist for the Helen Keller National Center, and I will be presenting with you this morning with Lori McBride, who's also from the Helen Keller National Center, and we're going to be talking to you about the deafblind perspective and self-advocacy. It's great to have you all here this morning, and I'll let Lori introduce herself as well.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lori McBride. My sign name is the L on the back of the wrist. I live in Iowa, so I'm a deafblind specialist and I cover the state of Iowa. I've worked with Helen Keller now for a few years, and I've been deafblind probably most of my life, but didn't know until 2012, so it's recently new. I have Usher syndrome type 2C. I wear hearing aids and I'm low vision.
And a little more about me. I am also a deafblind individual. I have Usher syndrome type 2A, and I have a cochlear implant in the left ear and a hearing aid in the right ear. And I have been the deafblind specialist for the state of Indiana. I've worked for Helen Keller for just about a year now, and I've had hearing loss since birth and vision loss since my teens. So today we're going to talk about some different things with combined vision and hearing loss. So what is combined vision and hearing loss? It can be a wide range of things. A lot of people automatically assume that it's just all hearing loss, all vision loss, but it can be any combination of things. It can be low vision with hard of hearing. It can be low vision and full deafness. It can be blind with hard of hearing, and it could be blind and full, full blind and full deaf. And it's any range in between this. So the thing that's important with this is that, deaf blindness is a term that is also known as combined vision and hearing loss, and it's okay to embrace this term. Being deafblind is not a lifetime sentence of being isolated, not being able to do things, especially if you learn now how to advocate for yourself. There are many, many deafblind individuals that lead productive lives. Lori and we'll meet another gentleman a little bit later. I have 3 kids. I went to college and graduated. They keep me hopping. So being deafblind is not we have lives. We're normal people. So it is something that can be there for you. It's important to know that, in learning to advocate and learning about combined vision hearing loss is being open to learning new methods and techniques of doing things, and possibly learning from different types of instructors and professionals, such as like an O&M instructor. And so I also want to comment, we'll be meeting Mr. Chris Woodfill, who will be in the next presentation, who is also another very successful deafblind individual. I'm going to turn it over to Lori now.
Lori here. So the importance for both you, the student, and parents and your family is know how to advocate for your needs. The key thing, though, is knowing that you're going to have to advocate for your whole life. It's not just in school. It's not just, in college. It's going to be even at the workplace. It's going to even be within your own family. Because others don't know what your needs are. You usually know what you need. And that's why, like Casey had mentioned, being open to other instructors. Because like I know for me personally, my vision loss is slow and progressive, so it changes. And with those changes, we have to adjust. We have to learn new techniques as we go in life, as we move forward. The one best example that I have is my parents. I haven't lived with my parents in a long time. Um, Growing up with them, I've always had my hearing loss. So that was something as a family, we grew up knowing what to do, learning as we went. My vision loss, on the other hand, wasn't learned, like I mentioned earlier, until 2012. I haven't lived with my parents since the 90s, 1990s. So they don't know how to deal with my vision loss, like how I move. They don't know how I see things. And I was just on a recent visit with them. And I've been to their apartment before several times. And I put my cane away as soon as I got in the door. And I walked into their living room and it's very well lit. But my mom has a TV tray beside her chair and she had a cup sitting on it. I knew the table was there, but I didn't realize how close I was. And I bumped it. And I'm like, oh, but I didn't bump it anymore after that. But I had to explain to my parents again how my vision works, how I see. And the easiest description I could give them was I showed them with my hands, is I cupped them around my eyes and I said, take some toilet paper rolls, the tube, put them on your eyes. That's what I see. And just giving them that little bit of information tells them what I need assistance with. Because my dad, when he picked me up from the airport, he was like, well, we got to go this way, and he would open the door and he'd say, okay, go ahead in, it just wasn't descriptive enough, but I could see well enough. And it's like, that is fine. Our parents are going to always be our parents. So advocating with our parents is the toughest job I feel out there. So, but it's that piece where you have to be respectful of your parents, respectful of anyone else, of advocating for what your needs specifically would be. If you need someone to guide you, tell them, put your elbow out and I'll show you, how to guide me, and that helps, because I had to do that at the airport with my escorts. I said, just give me your elbow and I'll walk a little bit behind you and you walk ahead. Then we're good to go. So different little things like that, just telling a person and explaining why you need an accommodation, whether it's simple or complicated, it's just explaining why it works and what you need really, really helps. And it opens that dialogue of being able to have a conversation. I know for me, even with some friends I met last time I went home, they didn't know anything about my vision loss, and I was thankful for them because they didn't really try and overhelp, but we have fun with it in the sense that my friend was driving and say, well, you need to let me drive. So it's important to self-advocate. Now, for our parents, when our kids are younger, we are the ones that advocate for the kids, in school, with their friends, and we make sure that our kids will advocate when they get older. So as they get older, it's a good idea to have them practice advocating. If you're having a meeting, for example, with a teacher, you can start the dialogue with the teacher and just say, okay, here's my son, daughter, these are they need some accommodations. I'm going to let them tell you what they need. And then they're supporting them. They can tell the teacher, and that's a tough one. is telling the teacher, what they need, what works for them, because it will give them that little bit of uprightness in wanting to self-advocate. Is teacher will actually listen, because at some point when you go to college, our parents are not going to be there at college. My parents weren't there. I mean, they were at the start, but when my classes started and then I had new teachers, they weren't there. I did have staff at the college support me, and they helped with letting my teachers know I needed, them to wear an FM system. And I had one teacher that said no. And I had said, well, okay, I'll try without, but if it doesn't work, I'll need you to wear it. It didn't work. So the next day, I had a different teacher, but in the same room. And it sounded like I was in a gymnasium in that room if the teacher didn't wear the microphone. So new teacher, I explained to them my needs, and he said the same thing as the first teacher, that they didn't want to wear it. And I told him I needed him to wear it. Otherwise, there's no point in me being in your classroom to learn. I will not learn anything if you don't wear it. And I was, my counselor that was there with me was surprised at how well I spoke up. And I said that I need this. And he wore it, and then he forgot all about it. It was funny because I had to chase after him after class to get the microphone back. So learning at a younger age that you can speak up to your teachers will help when you get to college, university, or even in the workforce. So I'll turn it over to Casey.
Right. So Lori has brought up very good points that it's important to advocate and be able to, stand up for yourself and giving your kids the opportunity to learn how to do that now. Because it's very important to understand too that there is a very big difference between the youth programs and adult programs. As a youth, the schools, the kids are in schools and stuff, and the schools are required to provide those accommodations and so forth. A lot of those accommodations are initiated by the schools, and you have different meetings and so forth, and you talk about what they need. However, it's important to realize that when you transition out of the youth program, when they complete school by either graduating or completing the youth services programs and so forth, that when you move into adult services or transition out of that, it changes. And it is very important to know that once you complete those programs, that nobody is required to provide you those accommodations unless you initiate it. During school, they will, those measures are in place. Granted, some schools are better at doing it than others, and that you as a student or the family of the student need to make sure that those needs are met completely. But once you're done with the youth program, nobody is required to start those programs or start those accommodations for you. You have to advocate to request those. And school, some of the different things could be, IEPs or adjusted schedules and test taking methods, like interpreters, personal care assistants, a lot of those different things can be provided. But those things are not set up or provided for you unless you start advocating and request those when you get into adult services and when you finish out the program with the schools. And just know too, it's important to know that, all accommodations are completely negotiable in regards to you being able to ask for them. So, not that they are, some things are not negotiable as far as them providing them, but everything, don't leave anything off the table, be creative. But it's also important to know the law and know of your resources of where you can go to understand the law to help you with that. Now, with adults, or as I said, with adult services, once it's complete, when you get into adult services, when the student finishes up with school, you have to request that to go to the programs and different things, because if you don't, it's not going to happen. Basically, your student will finish with school, and nobody's going to be reaching out to you to say, okay, what do we do now? So that's why we're really trying to make it clear that you have to initiate that. There are transition programs, and these transition programs actually under the WIOA actually can start as early as age 14. Advocate with your school to help you get these started to get you transitioning into vocational rehabilitation, or with other adult services. And we'll be hearing from Steve Sontag a little later. He's with the vocational rehabilitation, so he'll have some good information on that too. So I'm going to turn it on back over to Lori, and she's going to talk more about resources.
Lori here. So the resources that are out there, where do we find them? I know when I've started looking for resources for myself of support, I'm originally from Canada. So I've lived here in the States now just over 20 years, but still I knew what resources were available in Canada, but here in the States, it seemed like a whole different world. So you want to know your resources, who you can contact for, to answer any questions that you may have. Who can support you, and this is some of, we're here to support you, as Helen Keller National Center, we are. But another resource is the American Disabilities Act. The short form is the ADA, and that's the law of, equal, it prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life, including jobs, school, transportation, and all public and private places that are open to general public. And it sounds kind of wordy, but it's essentially like if you go into a restaurant, they can't tell you can't come in because you're blind and deaf, for example. I mean, it's very general. But there's multiple sections to the ADA. I don't know every single law that's written in there. Okay. I would contact my local office in the state of Iowa, who are like lawyers that look after ADA. On that resource sheet that Case and I have developed, we have your local resource in Indiana office to contact. If you think you've been discriminated against, I would contact them, explain the situation of what's happened, and say, was I discriminated against, or is there something more I can do? Because I feel that I wasn't treated well, or I wasn't treated right, I wasn't accommodated. Another resource, as I said, is Helen Keller National Center. We met your representative is John Phillick, and then Casey is your deafblind specialist for your state. They have a wealth of information, and we can connect with some of our experts in New York. Even for myself, I've had training for myself with my coworkers in New York for O&M, orientation mobility. I learned to be a better cane user as a deafblind individual rather than just as a blind person. So, and we are a lifelong point of contact. So there's no age out limit with Helen Keller National Center. Then you have more local programs, as Casey mentioned, with Mr. Steve Sontag in the VR office. So make contacts there. Look on your state resource page. I don't have that list up here, but I know it's quite a healthy list. You know, keep that. You know, I don't expect anybody to memorize it. We can't. You just keep that as a resource, and it's like, oh, okay, you know, I know who to contact. Now they may not have the answer, but they'll know somebody who does. Let's see what else we got. Even the Indiana DeafBlind Project is another point of contact. Can't forget them. And what else? Any other contacts that I need to mention? Yeah, I'm mute.
Right. This is Casey. Jump in and help Lori here a little bit.
Yeah.
So there are the, it could be like, we also have the Indiana Disability Rights organization that's here in Indiana, the Governor's Council for People with Disabilities. As you know, your voc rehab counselor, different programs such as I Can Connect, which is an equipment program that's for people that are with combined vision and hearing loss. And as Lori said, it's really important to know those contacts, to know how to get to them. You don't have to memorize them. You don't have to, know them off the top of your head, but know how to find them, or know how to find people that can get you to them. So again, check out that resource page. It is attached to our profiles in Whova. It's a wealthy list, as she said, all different kinds of information on there for you. Please keep that in your toolbox of resources, your lifetime toolbox of knowing how to deal with the world as a person with combined vision and hearing loss. So other things that you can do to help with that learning advocacy is seek out more training on how to do self-advocacy. HKNC actually has a training called Advocacy in the Deafblind World. It's a program that they have. If you're interested in that, it's actually a pretty comprehensive program to work with the student and teaching them how to advocate for themselves. You can reach out to John, our regional services coordinator, regional rep, that can give you information on that. Here locally in Indiana, there's the Indiana Partners in Policymaking Program. It's actually put on by the Governor's Council for People with Disabilities. And even as students or parents, there are all kinds of workshops. That is something that with the pandemic, there's been tons and tons of online workshops, which can be a wealth of information as well. So be sure to check those out. Learning is a lifelong process, and it's definitely the way to go. Lori and I are going to wrap up here because we're getting close on time too. Basically, advocacy is a lifelong journey. Work on preparing yourself and your student now is to be able to successfully travel on this journey, and know your resources and stay connected with these resources to know how to get help and clarification on things when you need assistance in navigating this journey. So I think at this point we can open it up for questions. If anybody has any questions for us, we would please feel free to turn your camera on and ask, or just turn your mic on, and we're here to answer. And I know Lori and I both did put our contact information on our profiles in Whova. Absolutely reach out to us if something else comes up later on. We both would be happy to answer anything you may have. So